the African teacher, Maurice Odhiambo, it's a good thing that the South African criminal groups, Dudula, March and March, are beginning to realize how silly they are. They're beginning to realize that their criminal activities in that part of the world, their initiatives to forcibly remove Africans from other countries, from South Africa, are the most stupid things that any people can do. It's good that they are beginning to reckon with that fact. They are not happy that the Ghanaian government opted to take out Ghanaians who were willing to go back to their country. And they went back. Ghana had to call up the South African ambassador to explain these criminal activities. The largest economy on the continent is allowing its affairs to be managed by criminal groups, by vigilantes. The largest economy on the continent. How can that be? How can that be? South Africa is a beneficiary of Africa's integration. Before South Africa joined SADC, the Southern Africa Development Community, one of the countries that really had influence was Zimbabwe. That's before South Africa got independence, or, the black majority took over political power. Zimbabwe was flourishing. Of course, Zimbabwe had its internal issues, and it lived through many years of sanctions because of radical land reforms, which, of course, colonists, imperialists cannot accept. And South Africa has the same problem. But the fact is that when South Africa joined SADC, it became the most prominent actor within that regional entity. And that coincided with Zimbabwe having serious economic challenges, partly because of resistance to land reform by the UK, basically by the imperialist class. Of course, Mugabe did quite some bad things, but the biggest problem is that the imperialists did not want any land reform to happen in Zimbabwe, the same way they cannot allow land reform to happen in South Africa. People have to know this. Africans have to know some of these realities. I saw many Africans celebrating when Mugabe was fighting back against imperialist forces. Yes, Mugabe did bad things. He killed many Zimbabweans. But don't be lied to. The reason white people, white power, was uncomfortable with Mugabe was not because Mugabe was terrorizing Zimbabweans. It is because Mugabe threatened land reforms, mass land reforms, massive land reforms. Here in Kenya, we couldn't do it because Jomo Kenyatta was a collaborator. He collaborated with British imperialism. Said willing buyer, willing seller. How do you force peasants who were removed from their land to buy land using what resources? How? And this is the same philosophy that is being applied in South Africa. It's willing buyer, willing seller. When the white people were taking over land, there was no question of willing buyer, willing seller. They never bought the land. They simply conquered it. They stole it. So here we are. The Dudulas, the March and Marches, they are criminal groups. They are not taking South Africans anywhere because they simply don't have any agenda. You cannot steal people's property because we have seen all the evidence. You are stealing people's properties and justifying it on the basis that they are undocumented. What kind of nonsense is that? Documented or not documented does not give you the license to steal, to be a thief. You're killing people. You are killing fellow Africans. Not being documented does not take away the right to life. The dignity of a human being is not taken away simply because they are in a country where they are not documented. That is why when Africans die in the Mediterranean Sea going to Europe, we all come up and condemn those governments that are killing them. Because human life cannot be negotiated. The right to life cannot be negotiated. It is not negotiable anywhere. Documented, undocumented, semi-documented, whatever. You don't have the right to take somebody else's life. It is as simple as that. That is why we all condemned apartheid. Apartheid was killing Africans. Just yesterday, we marked the Day of the African Child, the Soweto massacre. Because taking life can never be justified. And South Africans ought to know this. We celebrate the Day of the African Child because of the criminal acts of the apartheid regime. That is why we celebrate the Day of the African Child. I have been a guest to many of those celebrations. And we remember Soweto. We remember how children were massacred. Dudula, March and March, you are criminal enterprises. You are criminal enterprises in the pay of imperialists. This one, I agree with Julius Malema totally. I don't agree with him on many things because he's one of the beneficiaries of the Black Empowerment programs. He is one of the beneficiaries. A lot of the rich Black South Africans, the elites, are beneficiaries of Black Empowerment programs because they made a deal with the devil. They decided to take their cut and go and run. The current president, how did these people make their billions? They are billionaires. They are billionaires. They are compradors. But on this one, I agree with Julius Malema because you cannot have it both ways. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot be on the African continent and decide that you don't want to have anything to do with Africans. Okay. So that's it. Dudula and all these criminal gangs must go.